What up, and welcome to the Roundtable. I am your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. First one of the new year, first one in 2022. We're going to start this thing off with a bang. Tyson, Happy New Year to you, and how are you, brother?
Happy New Year to you, man. I'm doing well. It's winter weather advisory over here in good old Montana. Expected between I think it was 7 3/4 to 9 inches snow tonight. So uh, just gonna cuddle up with maybe a good book after this, and just wish I lived anywhere else.
Hey, that's a cliche, man. But I learned out being out east is when whatever weather you get, we get later. So I guess I'll have to start preparing myself for some
Right?
snow.
Yeah. Put the chili on the pot.
Put the
Get it
chili on the
ready.
pot, exactly. Get ready for it. I have to go back to my Montana roots and punch in for the snow. All right. Well, if you listen to our last podcast, a little sayonara to 2021, and Tyson and I said we got some big stuff going on. Would love when you interact, and then we actually got a few questions you guys sent in over this break. So we're going to lead off with a question and close with another one that we picked. But it's going to be a big football show today. We're getting close to the playoffs. Week 18, first time ever. Got a lot of stuff to talk about as we lead into the playoffs. Then next week we'll actually give you with the finalized bracket a look at the NFL playoffs and get you ready for the first wild card weekend, which is going to be unbelievable. So, to start off, here's a question from Chance Stack who sent this in. He said, talking about the UFC, if Francis Ngannou, right? The
hmm
last time, yeah, Francis Ngannou, if he wins, he's going to get an automatic one-fight extension on his UFC contract. But if he loses, his contract extension is up. So he's asking us if he thinks, or if we think that Francis is going to resign, or if he signs a new promotion with the UFC. So if he re-signs with the UFC, or if he resigns, or leaves the UFC and goes and signs with like Bellator or a different UFC company, maybe WWE or something like that. So I know I kind of jumbled that up a little bit, but Tyson's UFC guy here. So wanted to get that on the docket because we normally start with some fighting stuff.
Okay, so if you're not familiar, Francis Ngannou is probably the most electric guy in MMA right now. Is not in the same way a guy like Max Holloway or early Jose Aldo was, where they're gonna, it's flashy and stuff. He legitimately hits harder than a Ford Escort traveling at 35 miles an hour or 34 miles, whatever. They did the test, and essentially he punches harder than anybody in human history. And so when he connects, people go to sleep. But he's been fighting with the UFC over pay, which is that is what it is in the UFC. Unfortunately, he's not the only person that thinks they're underpaid. But um, he's been saying he has to borrow money from his friends and stuff to complete fight camps and pay for the way that he wants to live. And Dana White and the UFC say, well, then that's on you. Where you signed the contract, we don't care that you have all these viral moments. Fight out your contract. So there's been some drama there. And then, as Chance said, if he wins, he gets every time you win, you get an automatic extension on your contract. If you win the championship, every time you win the belt, you get +1. And he's fighting for the belt that he already won, that he immediately got stripped from him, that started this whole thing. He's fighting a guy named Cyril Gain, undefeated France heavyweight, and who actually they used to be training partners. But Francis has been teasing a lot of he wants to fight Anthony Joshua, and he wants to fight Deontay Wilder, and he wants to fight Tyson Fury, but he wants to box him because that was his dream growing up. So if he loses, I think that it would. I think he's gone from the UFC, which sucks because he's super super fun to watch. Somebody's getting knocked out 99% of the time he walks in there, but his dream was to be a boxer. He's fighting with the boss, and maybe Scott Coker over at Bellator offers him a bag and then lets him also entertain those boxing dreams.
I mean, that's interesting. That's an interesting angle. And I think, if he wins, my question to you is he going to use that leverage to try to get something else? Like, hey, championship UFC fighter is fighting against, let's say it's Anthony Joshua, kind of kind of what we saw with Connor and Floyd. But, those
Right.
were Connor's, Connor wasn't, I mean, he's a big name, but he wasn't like the champion, the undisputed at the time. And against Floyd Mayweather, we kind of got tired of that, a little bit of his fights. Would he just utilize this and be like, okay, now I'm going to use the UFC's name to cross promote into something else? Is that even possible? You know, like, what do you think from
I
your
don't think
expertise?
Dana would let that happen, just because
Okay.
I think, like, if he wouldn't let George St. Pierre box Oscar De La Hoya back in the day, or Anderson Silva trying to fight Roy Jones Jr. for all those years, and those were like superstars. But Connor was on his own level that Dana was like, oh, I can make a bunch of money off this right before the UFC is about to sell, build the brand name as well. That was kind of a perfect storm of things. Plus, it was Floyd Mayweather on the other side. And we all know Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder because we watch, but random people know they don't even know he's a boxer. They know Floyd Mayweather's name. They know the money team. There's hats, shirts. He's a brand. So I just think Dana would be like, no, you're going to fight for, we'll give you $1 million. And Francis is going to say, well, I can go box for 40.
Right.
And then Dana's going to say, oh, you can't because you're under contract with me. And it's just going to go that way. And I think it could get pretty ugly.
Is there any chance he tanks it?
I don't know. I mean, you always want to say no, right? I mean, if I were him, I think what better negotiating standpoint do you have than being the champion? But I mean, he'd lose a lot of shine, I think, to other organizations if he loses badly. If he loses and it's a close one, then it's fine. But if he goes in there and gets his butt kicked, even if it's on purpose and he threw it, I think maybe he goes to Eagle FC, the one Habib just started.
That'd be interesting.
I think he signed like Anthony Pettis. He's trying to sign Dustin Poirier.
Oh my God! All right, well, there's something. So there's, and in this new day and age, there's so many options for all these different things, man. I mean, we got the USFL starting back up again. I mean, for the second time, we got so many options. So he will be in demand regardless, win or lose. It's just a question that Chance asking us if he's going to be putting on a new or fighting for a new organization, or if he's back in the UFC. So very interesting question from Chance. So thank you for sending that in, Tyson. I don't know if you want a final thought on that.
Oh, Francis will get messed up even boxing Deontay Wilder. So maybe it's in his best interest to keep that as a what if.
There you go. All right. So thank you to Chance. We got another question we're going to answer later. Keep sending in these questions. We'll answer them as we've done on these podcasts. We want to make this more interactive and a community, as we said on the last one. But Tyson, enough of the pleasantries, enough of any other stuff, baby. It's time for the gridiron. It is time for the gridiron in our first ever NFL Week 18. Is that weird to say?
Yeah. I was thinking about it. I'm glad a lot of these records got broken last week because, like, if Cooper Kupp shows up and goes crazy, then how do you but I guess we don't talk about Reggie White getting his 15 sacks. He did it in 12 games, so it'll change, but it feels weird, man. It feels phony still.
I know. It's like, oh, of course. Like, look at these inflated numbers. It's like, well, actually, Cooper's like on pace to break it in a 17 or a 16 game season, 17-week schedule. But I agree with you. I'm like, oh, of course, all these guys are doing this. We got 18 weeks of it, 17 games. It's like, I don't know if that's actually factual, but it's just in our heads. Before Tyson and I dive into all that good stuff, like, I mean, if you're looking through the schedule, these games, I mean, Cowboys, Eagles, marquee matchup, Chiefs, Broncos, old rivalry, Packers, Lions, not anymore, but like big marquee names. Steelers, Ravens, that's a big one. The Jets, Bills, old school, Niners, Rams, just like Seahawks, Cardinal, just go through these and you just got massive matchups. And then you're like, oh, wait, it's week 18, or in previous years, it's week 17. I may not see the starter. There's rumblings that Joe Burrow may not play in week 18. I think confirmed he's out week 18. So they're pulling players.
Confirmed it.
He confirmed it. So that's one of the biggest storylines for me is like, yeah, even though we have all these matchups, there are going to be marquee names that sit out or play a quarter like it's a preseason game and sit out. So we're going to see a lot of backups. I think that's a big storyline to get prepared for as we get rolling into these games.
Yeah, I think that's probably the number one thing. The only game against potential playoff hopefuls, I think, like a win and you're in type deal, is the Chargers versus Las Vegas. But even that is contingent on something else. So we don't have like a true playoff game the week before, which I would kind of prefer if the NFL would move, because they always do this. Last year, last week of the year is like the big rivalry week. Like we'll put a bunch of division rivals playing each other that week. I wish that one was bumped up and then it was played like the Dolphins can play the Jets. It's and like just like put let the I guess Washington is playing New York this week, so that's one. But bump these up a week, make them more interesting, and then leave the last week for the guys just to chill.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a good idea. And in theory, it's great. Like, oh, these division games, they're going to play hard.
But it never matters.
But it never matters. I mean, it never does. Like Chiefs, Broncos, like, why did the Chiefs care? Like, they're in the playoffs. Either the 1 seed or the 2 seed. All right. So, and the Broncos, like, it's probably in their best interest to lose because they want a better draft pick. Like, it sounds good in theory, but in reality, maybe you'll bump these up like 2 weeks, like you said, and then we'll have, Broncos go to Miami. That's like, that's fine. That's
right.
Interesting on some level, but yeah, I get it. We'll see how it goes. But that's one for me. Tyson, what's like a big Week 18 storyline for you that you're looking out for?
I mean, I'm interested in San Francisco. I think it's going to be, obviously this is huge because if they lose and New Orleans wins, San Francisco is out of the playoffs, which when Ian Book was playing, a couple of weeks ago, that seemed very unlikely that the Saints were going to find themselves sitting here, but here we are. And Jimmy Garoppolo banged up, playing a division rival in the Rams, who I believe are locked in, but I think they can manipulate where what wild card team they're going to play.
Yeah.
But if they lose, they could end up playing the Niners again. I think, which would be back-to-back weeks of a team that beat you twice. So I mean that game I think is huge. Plus, it's my boy. Is Trey Lance going to play? How much is he going to play? Is he going to play the whole game? How's he going to look? Is he for real? Should this have happened in Week 7 or after the Week 7 bye? And would they be in this spot right now?
Yeah, I think that's all fair. Especially because of course we just got done shitting on the schedule, but this is a game that matters for both teams.
Right.
Like, obviously, Niners win, you're in. Rams, they got something to play for. You get the 2 seed. On paper, you're playing the worst team coming into the playoffs. So, and you want to keep rolling 13-4. That's a good number. Kind of progress to the right way, especially when they had that November that was disaster. 13-4.
That sounds so weird.
I know. I'm looking at them like 12-4. I'm like, that just sounds right. Now I'm gonna go, 13-4. It sounds disgusting. So, I just looking at all these teams though. The other thing too that I'm trying to figure out like exactly. Like how it all shakes up. Like who's the number 1 overall pick right now? Because I know Jacksonville's 2-14 because the Lions have that tie.
Is it not Jacksonville?
It is. But if they beat the Colts, right, then it goes obviously to Detroit if they don't win.
I think.
So yeah, so Jacksonville I guess has this locked up if they just lose this game to the Colts. So Jags, again, number 1 overall pick. Yeah, that's something interesting to me. Just kind of how these teams jockey. And you got the Texans at 4-12, the Giants at 4-12, the Jets at 4-12, Carolina at 5-11. Do those guys tank it and kind of jockey around to see if they want to go on the high note on a win? Do they actually play for draft position? Just how these bottom level teams are going about this last week of the season. If it's strategic, or if they're coaching for their ass, their jobs as general managers. Just kind of viewing how the bottom shelf does in this Week 18 when everybody's focused on the playoffs.
And then on top of that, you have a team like Miami, right, who has been eliminated but doesn't own their first-round pick. They have a decent game coming up this week. That they playing the Patriots?
They are. No, they're playing. Miami. Yes, they are. They are.
Yeah, they're playing the Patriots. They're playing the Patriots, and the Patriots can it doesn't sound realistic, but they can still clinch the 1 seed. And if they win and Buffalo loses, they win the AFC East.
Right.
But Miami is now playing for pride only because there is no incentive for them to get a better pick unless, you'd rather pick 58th instead of 59th in the second round there, which I don't think that there is going to be on the front of Tua's mind going into this game. So it's interesting. And I love that the NFL has shifted from very taboo to tank on purpose and do this stuff over the last couple of years, and now it's like, fuck you guys, dude. I want to pick 9. I want 13.
Exactly. It's funny, especially because it's in the NBA. You have the lottery system,
Right.
so
It's wide open.
it's wide open. Like if we finish 4 or 6, it's like it doesn't really matter. Like 2 percentage points, whatever. This is like no, we can directly impact if we're picking 6 or picking 3. Like that's a big difference.
And I mean, some of these teams are looking at their division rival. Washington and New York are playing each other this weekend, and I'm sure Washington wants to beat them. But part of the Washington front office is probably like, well, if we beat them, then they're picking like 6. And I don't know if I want these guys walking out of the draft with this guy.
Yeah, exactly. So you're jockeying, and then obviously some other storylines.
It's so crazy.
Coaches coaching for their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Nagy. I don't think he's savable, but I mean, you got Matt Nagy who seems like he's a dead man walking against Mike Zimmer, who seems like he's doing everything he can to get his ass fired. I mean, so that they're playing each other. The 2 fired coaches, in my opinion, are playing each other. It's so many coaches that I think are actually going to get let go at the end of the year. Seahawks, Cardinals. I mean, I don't think you can fire Cliff. I actually think he's done a good job this year, but what does Pete Carroll do? Matt Rule, a little bit on the hot seat there in Carolina. How's he go out?
I mean, was he in the second year of a 7-year extension or something like that? I bet that, the general manager and owner in Carolina are not pleased with their business decision there.
Well, let me just say this. Then they should have fucking got a quarterback. I mean,
they got like 4 of them. What do you mean? If you combine all 4 of them, it makes like one average level starter.
Yeah, because everything, average. That's all you would get with those bums they were signing.
You got
I mean,
PJ Walker's speed, Cam's hair. Oh man, if you combine all the quarterbacks, they still suck.
Yeah, they're still. I mean,
like
they're still
Darnold's arm probably, and that's not good.
No, yeah, just get rid of his decision making. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater's decision making, but then you don't have any bombs on the field, so you're kind of screwed that way.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anything else like big storyline? Oh, how about TJ Watt's sack record?
Yeah, but
that's in jeopardy.
That's the one that I was kind of referencing earlier on the records. It would be cool. Just because it's cool when those things get broken, but when the first one of these big records falls due to the extended week, I'm not going to know how to feel about it for 6 years, and then I'm going to forget that Michael Strahan ever did that in 16 games. Just like how I think it's always gone.
I feel like NFL records we don't really care about.
No, I don't. The only one is Night Train Lane's interception record.
That is a good one. That's a good one.
Because what, he got 14 in like 10 games or 12 games or something when they didn't even throw the ball?
Right. Yeah, that is crazy. And of course, then you're going to have like the quarterback records we all care about. It's like, and then you're like, oh yeah, well Brady played till he's 60 and like those aren't going to ever be broken. So there you go.
Right. Played more games and played longer than anybody.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's not like, even in basketball, we don't care. There's the 100-point game and stuff, but baseball is really the only the sport that I can think of where the records it's like a big deal when somebody's approaching some of these.
Right. That's what I was thinking too. Cause I'm like, we're talking about these things like, oh yeah, the Cooper Cup thing. I'm like, before that was like Calvin Johnson. And then like, Michael Strahan. Like I remember that because a little controversy around it.
Mm-hmm.
But does anybody think that Michael Strahan, because he got, 22 and a half sacks or whatever, 21 and a half, is he really better than like Reggie White or Bruce Smith just because he did that in one season? It's like, no, we know those guys are better than Michael Strahan no matter what.
I never really thought about it that way, but NFL records don't mean shit. Like it's cool for like I'm sure Michael Thomas, it's cool when you catch that 149th pass, but like watching at home, I'm like, damn, can you like just get the ball on the sideline and get on? Like, I gotta go to bed.
Right. Yeah, seriously. Just run a 2-yard slant. It's like that's not doing me any favors, pal.
It's 10:30, buddy.
Yeah, 12:30 my time. I think I'm feeling my eyes are popping out of my skull from tiredness. I gotta watch this guy run slant routes and complain about everything. Like, good. All right.
Hey, he didn't even play all year. How crazy is that?
Well, we've had some words about Michael Thomas in this podcast.
He didn't play all year, and Antonio Brown had it in whatever happened on week 17. It was like our two boys.
Was that the most bizarre thing you've ever seen?
Yeah, I still don't know what happened really. Like AB released a statement today and basically saying everything the Bucs are saying is untrue and that they knew he broke his ankle and they have all this stuff. And so I don't know who to believe. I do think that if it was anybody else, it would be like, oh man, did you see that? But then the dude gets in an Uber, gets on video, stays in Brooklyn, releases a rap song. Like, it's the most AB shit.
It's crazy, man. I mean, he is bizarre. He is bizarre. That's for sure. And here's the little rumor too that the Bucks are going to hold on to him, not release him until the teams are in the playoffs, so they can't pick him up. So, all of a sudden he's a cowboy or a chief. It's like, I'm just going to hold on to him as long as I can, which is smart business wise. But that was some crazy shit I've never seen before. Just quit in the middle. Like, we always joke about Vontae Davis, like, retired at halftime.
Well, yeah, like, how did he do it? Like, we just saw AB. He just took his stuff off, chucked it, pumped up the crowd, and gave deuces.
Changed and was waiting for an Uber while Tom Brady's, like, trying to lead him against the Jets. Like, that was nuts.
That's going to be one of the most underrated Brady comeback wins, last second touchdown drives, like, ever. No Godwin, Evans banged up, AB leaves. And he still does it.
Yeah, we're all gonna remember that one, I'm sure. Zach Wilson.
It
is crazy though.
That's gonna be one of the most underrated moments of his career. I think that was pretty impressive.
It was. It's just typical Brady. But all right, Tyson, we're not quite there yet for the playoffs. Teams are locked in. We have it. We don't have who's the one, who's the two, who's the three. We have ideas about it. So we're going to run through these scenarios. Tyson's going to give you like what can happen with the team still alive who aren't quite locked in yet. They're close, but not yet. So we're going to start in the NFC. It's a little bit simpler before we move to the AFC. So we're warming up your brains on this one before we move to the complicated one. So right now, who's in Green Bay? Who's in the Rams? Who's in Tampa, Dallas, Cardinals, Eagles? So there is one seed left up for grab right now. That's the 6 or the 7. There are two teams in the NFC still alive, the 49ers and the Saints. So, Tyson, you kind of mentioned it when you're watching it, but kind of run through the scenarios here to lock these teams in.
So, if New Orleans wins and San Francisco loses, Saints clinch a playoff berth. So, for the Niners, it's win and you're in. But if New Orleans loses, then the Niners are in as well. So, that one's like pretty much as straightforward as you can get. But there are interesting scenarios too throughout like the NFC West, as far as Arizona can win the division still if the Rams lose. So, but the NFC is very cut and dry. Packers number 1 seed. Everything else is just going to be movement within the seedings.
That would be interesting. So you mentioned that kind of passive, like, if the Rams lose, I mean, so we got to think about it like this: if the Rams lose, Niners are in. Mm-hmm. Cardinals may win that. They could jump up to the 2 seed, I believe, 2 or 3.
So, yeah,
that is huge. That's huge because they're sitting at the 5 seed right now.
Mm-hmm.
They would potentially host a home game in Arizona,
which I don't know if they want to do because they suck at home and they've been pretty good on the road all year.
True. Maybe they just tank it. Maybe they're like, what Arizona? Like, let's get out of here.
That is, I mean, they're going to be. They have 11. They're 11-5, and they're sitting there in the wild card. And they're still not sure what's going to happen to them. And then you got Philly at 9-7, like just like already locked in somehow. So the tiebreaker rule the NFL instituted, it makes sense. But once you get to 3 teams, it gets so weird that sometimes teams that even lost a head-to-head, like the Eagles lost to the 49ers, have clinched before they have, which I'm not a fan of that. We can get into that discussion a lot later, but not sure how much I like the way the tiebreaker rules are written up when there's more than 2 teams.
Yeah, it's convoluted. Like, it's actually difficult to follow. And we follow this stuff, and even then I'm like, God, what is that tiebreaker rule again? Like, I have to look it up. I'm like, what? It makes no sense. But I mean, the NFC, like you said, is pretty straightforward. Niners, they win, they're in. That could mess some things up in the division. Rams could potentially not win the division. Cardinals could jump up. Rams are now in like wild card weekend. Niners lose, Eagles jump up to the 6th seed. Saints are in the 7th seed. Whoever got the 2 seed, which is the Rams, if they win, they got a cakewalk against Taysom Hill and the boys. And the Eagles, we play the Bucks. So, yeah, it's some interesting stuff there, man. There's some interesting matchups as we go through it.
Oh, it's going to be fun just because we're going to immediately talk ourselves into and out of playoff matchup scenarios. why this team could beat this team, why
Right.
the Rams could actually be in trouble because Taysom Hill has traditionally done this, and this, and it'll be fun for a week, no matter what happens. And then when the games are played, 90% of what we thought was going to happen for real is going to happen, and then we're going to be like, can you believe that the Rams got to play Taysom Hill?
Right.
But no matter what happens, it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. All right. So now that your brains are warmed up, Tyson, we're moving over to the AFC, and you're going to have to help these guys out because I felt like an idiot going through here. But let's start here. I'll get the easy job. I'm giving Tyson the work in the new year. That's what's happening. So who's in right now? Tennessee, Kansas City, the Bengals.
And those are all division winners, right there.
These are all division winners. And then you got
those three.
Yeah, those three. And then you got the Bills, who could clinch with the win. New England with the same record. And then those are the only 5 teams in right now. Now, here are the teams on the outside looking. Only teams left alive right now are the Colts, the Chargers, the Raiders, the Steelers, and miraculously, somehow, some way, the Ravens sitting at 8-8. Those are the 5 teams in the AFC left alive. Now, Tyson will explain to you because there's some cut and dry ways to get 2 of the 3 teams in. But for the Ravens to sneak in, Steelers to sneak in, it gets pretty complicated.
Oh, it gets weird. So basically, if the Chargers win, they're in. If the Raiders win, they're in. And those 2 teams play each other. So that one we'll know by the end of that game. That's
Colts win, they're in.
Yeah, if the Colts, I knew there was one more. If the Colts win, they're in. So those 3 are all kind of, winning, you're in. But if the Colts lose, then the Chargers and Raiders could tie and both make the playoffs. So the Colts, I think, are the most secure ones here because they can get in kind of in a multitude of ways. Some other teams, you lose, you're out. But as far as Baltimore goes, like, they have to win, and then the Chargers have to lose, and the Colts have to lose, and Miami has to lose or tie. And that's just kind of, asking for a lot.
That's a Hail Mary.
Yes. And then where the Steelers go? Steelers have to win, and then the Colts lose, and then the Chargers and the Raiders has to not end in a tie.
Oh, just one result there. So like either.
Yeah. I mean, it's so convoluted. And then on top of it, it's like the Titans are the 1 seed if they win, but there's other things. Like if they lose, they're in trouble because Kansas City could take the 1 seed. But then if Kansas City also loses, then Buffalo could get up there. And if Buffalo loses and the Patriots win, the Bengals are the 1 seed. And then if the Bengals lose, then all of a sudden the Patriots are the 1. So it's my head hurts.
Yeah, it's complicated stuff here. And of course, the NFL with their, like we said, it's all coming off of that tiebreaker rule that they instituted. So it's a whole basic simulation. But here's what you need to know. If you're a fan of the Colts, you want your team to win, they're in. If you're a fan of the Chargers or the Raiders, the winner of that matchup, you're in the playoffs. So it's the biggest game of the year right there. Now, if you're a fan of the Steelers and the Ravens, you're going to go home on Saturday night, wake up Sunday morning, hoping you said your good prayers on Saturday night, saying your good prayers on Sunday, and just hoping some crazy stuff happens. So that's if you're a fan of one of those teams, that's where you're at. And then we're going to be locked in and we're going to be ready for the playoffs. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a good one.
Oh, absolutely. And every year, I think something like one of these crazy scenarios happens. It's either every year or every couple of years where it's like these guys have no chance. And then, a 2-14 Oakland team comes out and beats an 11-5 Kansas City or something like that. And, and then somebody else gets upset. And then all of a sudden, we got a team that's on fire rolling into the wild card that you didn't even anticipate getting in. But now it's like, oh, the Ravens just got Lamar back. They look really good. Oh, I don't want to play them. I don't want to play them right away.
Right.
So it's it'll be fun. Something freaky is going to happen. I know that.
Absolutely.
I think
crazy.
I think it's the Jags giving the Colts a game.
Well, apparently they've beaten the Colts the last 5 times. The Colts have gone to Jacksonville. So there's a stat.
Yeah. Well, and how's Carson Wentz going to do in the humidity and the heat down there? This is in North Dakota. Now he's back in the north, kind of. He's playing in a dome. Carson's getting sunburnt by the end of the first quarter.
Oh, he's
And
going to be
then,
sunburnt.
yeah, he might miss 3 or 4 weeks after that.
Oh, man. Now you're taking shots at our guy.
I'm just playing.
Now he knows Hurts is his guy. Now he's going to send Carson a little kick on the way out.
Hey,
That's what he just did.
He's been gone.
He's been gone. You're right. All right, those are our scenarios. Crazy stuff as always when we talk about the NFL and what you need to consider for your team to get to the playoffs. Luckily, Tyson and I are Eagles fans, and we're good enough that we're already locked in. So, hey,
Yeah, good,
sucks
good
to be a Niners fan, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, we would have way rather not. We're glad we lost to you guys.
Exactly, or else we would have been on the hot seat. We can just kick it back, relax, watch Week 18, like, all right, baby. And we get done on Saturday, so everybody else can be tweaking out all Sunday.
Right,
We're going to
exactly.
be all right. Hey, Cowboys don't care. We don't care. Gentleman's handshake. Do some scrimmaging.
I want like 60 minutes straight of just kneel downs.
Oh man, imagine how bliss that Saturday would be.
How long do you think that game would take?
That would take an hour.
Yeah, just because commercials.
Just because,
halftime. I bet you could get the game over freaking 15 minutes, however long.
It'd be so great. Kneels and punts. Yeah, there's got to be a simulation about that. All right,
you both forfeit.
Yeah, just forfeit, call it a game, call it a tie, and then screw up everything else in like the entire playoff scenario. All right, Tyson, let's move over to just some previews here. I mean, obviously, as we said, not everybody's in, but for the teams that are locked in the AFC, we're going to go through our scariest team here. And who do you think it is? I mean, we just saw the Bengals in a heavyweight fight against the Chiefs. I mean, that was crazy. I mean, obviously, Derrick Henry's coming back for the Titans. You know, Buffalo can go on a run with Josh Allen. Hey, Bill Belichick, the Dark Knight, or the Darth Vader, he's back in the playoffs. That's scary. Out of those 5 teams, who's your scariest AFC team?
All year, I feel like I've been hyping up Indianapolis and the way that they play, and I think how that suits playoff football really well. And then you have Tennessee, who has stayed afloat after Derrick Henry's injury, which he's been gone 6 weeks now, and they haven't looked great once. They've looked good enough a couple times, but they find themselves looking at, potentially getting a bye week with Derrick Henry coming back, which makes them pretty scary. But I'm still going Kansas City. Just because last week, I don't think they looked that good in that game against the Bengals. I think there was a couple opportunities for them to put that game away. They didn't. Joe Burrow is the Iceman, and he figured out a way to go crazy on Kansas City, keep that game close. Jamar Chase going nuts. But Kansas City, has been on fire with the exception of last week. Really playing well for the last 2 months of the regular season. But they haven't, clicked yet and looked perfect. And I think that's really scary because they have the opportunity now. They're the bullies on the block in the AFC, and they know that they can beat everybody, and they haven't even played their best. And normally it would be like, oh, then they're just not going to reach their best this season, which that could very well be the case. But I'm going to rely on the fact that I've seen them do it in the playoffs a couple times where they might not look great for a game, but if they look great for 2 quarters, that's all they need because they can beat somebody. We saw them do it to Houston a couple years ago in the playoffs. They needed 2 quarters to put that game away. And I don't think there's anybody else in the AFC that can do that.
I hate to agree with you, but mine's the Chiefs as well. I mean, I'm not going to come up here and lie to you guys like, oh, I got to pick somebody else because Tyson picked the Chiefs. Like, no, it's the Chiefs. And we saw what they can do when they get their shit together, when they don't turn the ball over, when their defense plays fundamentally, when they have schemes and gap discipline, what that defense could do. And it's a really good defense, especially with Chris Jones in the interior, Melvin Ingram on the outside, provide pressure, they run stop well, and then they rally to the ball in the back end when they need help. Like it's a good defense. Like I wouldn't say great, I'd say really good at times. I think an overall good defense, and you supplement that with Mahomes and that offense who's figuring it out. It's going to be really hard to get them off the field on 3rd down. It's going to be really hard to stay on the field on 3rd down with the way that defense has been playing. And you can combine that with Andy Reid, who's a mastermind with what he's been doing. And he's got the monkey off his back with the Super Bowl. And They just coming off a Super Bowl win. And they're starting to figure it out. Like, this is a scary, scary team. And like you said, there's no substitute for experience. Hey, guys, we know what it's like to be in the playoffs. We know what it's like to have these matchups. Here's how you prepare. Here's what you do to take care of your body. Here's what you do on game day. Here's what you do in preparation week, like your personal life with your wife, with your kids, with your family. If you're a single guy, here's what you do. It's all of that is big in sports, and it's the stuff we don't think about. But that's why these people who have experience, they know what they're doing, and like with the Patriots or like with Tom Brady, that's why they continue to have success. It's because of things like that are important and it shows up on game day. So Chiefs are the scariest team to me in the AFC, and I'd be shocked if they're not playing for the Lombardi, to be completely honest with you.
We just talked about them for a minute, and we didn't mention the fact they have Pat Mahomes.
I mentioned him a little bit. I said it in passing.
Josh Allen's great, and Burrow has been. He literally has left Earth 2 weeks in a row. But going into a playoff game in the AFC, Pat Mahomes over the last 2 years has shown that he's the guy. They beat the Bills in the AFC title game a year ago. He's experienced. He's beaten everybody pretty much in the league with the exception of Tom Brady. And he would have if it wasn't for an offside penalty a couple of years ago, or 2018 or 2019, whenever it was the Rams Patriots Super Bowl. I think it was D4 that jumped off sides. But
yeah,
all that to say that Mahomes is, we talk about this guy for all the other stuff, but he's a pretty good playoff performer.
Yeah, I would say so. Let's move over to the NFC then. And scariest NFC team in your opinion? Teams that are in right now. I already ran through it, but Green Bay, Rams, Tampa, Dallas, Arizona, and the Eagles. So a lot of different things going for them. Green Bay seems to be hitting their stride. Rodgers looks unbelievable. The connection with all of his receivers. Tampa Bay, a little banged up, but it's Tom Brady. Dallas, and we don't know. Arizona, we don't really know, but that offense could explode. Same with Dallas. Rams, they got their guy. Is this going to take him over the edge? Eagles, best running offense. That translates. For you, which team are you like, this team scares the shit out of me if I'm playing them?
Well, I know I just chose the Chiefs, but in the NFC, it feels like you can't, it doesn't feel like I'm allowed to choose the Packers because they are the ones, we already know that you should be scared of going into Lambeau and playing Aaron Rodgers. So for me, it's going to be, I'm going to operate under the assumption that the Niners make the wild card game. And now that I said it, something they're not going to, they're going to lose and the Saints are going to win. But I think that these two or these three wild card teams, as they set up right now, take your pick. Do you want to play Kyler Murray in the first round? Do you want to play San Francisco, super physical, in the first round? Or do you want to play the number one rushing offense in the league in the first round? It's kind of like you're not walking out of there playing some scrubs. But I think that San Francisco is best equipped to play big-time football based on the competition and the level of teams that they have played and beat so far this season. And I think that the running game is, yes, Philly's rushing attack has been kind of more statistically superior to San Francisco, but it's just a little different the way they scheme the plays. Like Philly's is a little bit more finesse from the backs, and San Francisco is, it's a lot more power from those running backs. Philly's offensive line is great and you into the ground, but when you have to deal with Elijah Mitchell, and then if Trey Lance is playing, and then Debo in the backfield and all that stuff, and it could get scary. And the fact they beat good teams, Philly's here hasn't really beaten anybody. The Cardinals haven't beaten anybody super convincingly to me. That's been good since they started out 7-0. And yeah, they've had some flashes, but I'm rocking with San Fran, and I think Philly is pretty scary as well.
I agree with you. Just in terms of your assessment, I'm both Philly and the Niners. Obviously, Philly, anytime you can run the ball and control the time of possession, gets cold outside, your offensive line is able to just manhandle and overpower a defensive line. That's what football is in this time of year, is who's going to win in the trenches, and then you get the flash and the glamour coming after that. But yeah, I think that makes Philly scary when you can run the ball the way they do. And I think when you're looking at the Niners, to add to your assessment, they just have blue chip players everywhere, man.
Exactly.
Like Debo Samuel, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. Like, go through the list, and it's like, oh, that guy's a blue chipper. Oh, that guy's a blue chipper. Like, oh my God, the roster is just filled with these guys. Like, to the point where you kind of look, and yeah, of course, every team that's like Green Bay, it's like, yeah, but Devontae Adams, blue chip player for sure. And it's like, but then you got Al Nazard. Is he really that good, or is it because Rodgers makes him look that much better? On their defense is like kind of going through a matchup. It's like, no, we just know the Niners have a stacked roster because that's the type of guys they have. Like
they just everybody but corner, because you can't walk into like Green Bay or LA right now with Josh Norman as your cornerback one. That's just not going to go well.
But if they out physical, like you said, hey, it's football, man. That's how you win games in this time of the year. For me, it's the Rams, and how big of a fan I've been of the Rams, how big a fan I am of Matt Stafford. And they made me a little nervous in November, but they turned it around, and I'm back on the train here. Similarly to what we talked about with the Niners just now, I mean, their roster's just stacked, man. I mean, this is what they were built for. Beckham's coming in all of a sudden. Now he's taking that Robert Woods role seriously and elevated doing some Odell Beckham things. He's not doing Robert Woods things. They're not really asking him to do it. And I think that's why it's helping this offense. It's like, hey, we can just design you to be Odell Beckham, have Cooper Kupp be Kupp. Oh, and Van Jefferson's more of that type anyway. So we're not even asking you to do that type of stuff. The offense has improved. Darrell Henderson, Sony Michel, kind of like a little speed and power
Cam
combo.
Akers is supposed to be coming back this week. He's supposed to get his first plays.
Which is insane if you think about it. Tearing your Achilles and come back like 5 months later. I mean, that's freakish.
The last guy to do it, I think, was Brandon Brooks, and he tore his other Achilles, I think, in his first game back, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I think it's a bad idea, but I'm excited to see how it goes.
And then the defense, right? We still haven't seen the best of it. We know what Aaron Donald is. We're expecting Von Miller to make impact plays. We know what Jalen Ramsey is. Kind of a down year, in my opinion, if you're asking me personally. Just hasn't quite had that impact that you expect. But, I mean, listen, man. Big-time players make big-time plays on big-time stages. And that's what the Rams got these big-time players for, is for when the lights are bright, let's go out and play and let's make some plays. So I think they're scary to me. And then when you add the fact that Matt Stafford needs to prove it, that may scare some people. It doesn't for me, because I think he's ready to go. And I think him and McVay are going to do a lot of things, some defense that are going to be can't believe they're showing on TV.
Where do you fall on Tampa right now with all the injuries, the depleted wide receiver room? Because a month ago, it was like, these guys are going to repeat.
Right. How I feel about them right now with the injuries, I'm unsure about them. And the only reason I'm unsure is because Tom Brady's in that locker room.
I was hoping you were going to shit on him, and then Brady would do what Brady does, and then we could run this clip back.
No, see, I'm not Max Kellerman. I'm smart. Like, I trust my eyes, man. I see what this guy has done. If it's Rodgers, if it's Stafford, if it's Mahomes, if they're in that locker room, I'm like, ooh, I don't know, dude. The Bucs might be done with the only reason, because I've seen Tom Brady in the playoffs do what he does, and I'd be surprised, like, oh my God, like, I can't believe the Bucs, these injuries are in the AFC or the NFC Championship.
He's done it with less, I feel like.
But he's done it with less. It's like, come on. What about you? Where you stand on him?
I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing because I feel like they're the most vulnerable team in the NFC right now. But at the same time, it was like in a month and a half, if they're the ones playing in the Super Bowl, then it's like, of course they're here. Like, what else did you expect to happen?
I know. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. We're talking, he's like 45 and we're talking about him this way.
It doesn't make any sense. Now, Tyson, for you, who's the biggest fraud in the AFC? If you're looking through, like, what team are you like, hey, they've had a good year, but come on. I mean, let's get real. They're not winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, there's a couple teams I think that aren't going to win the Super Bowl. In the AFC, I think you can count them out right now. But I would have said Cincinnati until the last couple weeks, and I actually am really encouraged by the way they've been playing. I still don't think they can, compete week over week with the best teams, but they've shown in one-offs they can go in there and play with anybody and put 50 points up on anyone. But as far as biggest frauds goes, I think I'm still going to choose the Patriots. I feel like it's been me hating on New England on accident for almost the entire year, but I feel like everyone else got really, really excited when they started out as hot as they did, and kind of, anointed the fact that, okay, they're back. It's like, well, they're not beating anybody,
Right.
and they're playing fine, but like Mac Jones is putting up these insane. His completion percentage is crazy, but we shit on Teddy Bridgewater for playing, that average depth of target area that Mac Jones is in. Yeah, Mac's slinging it, but like we can't have it both ways. Oh, it's 2001 Tom. No, and they don't have that defense. So, um, look, I think that New England has had a really good year, but I think they're worse than, from Indianapolis on up. I think they're worse than all those teams.
Well, I think you can be happy to know that I agree with you. And this is two AFC teams.
And we don't talk about these before the show.
We don't. We don't. And the reason I'm with you though, I mean, listen, this is what it comes down to is coach quarterback in the playoffs. We know what the Patriots have on the coaching sideline. But Mac Jones is a rookie. And beyond that, it's not like he has the Bengals skill receiver or skill the weapons around him, skill players around him, or that the Chiefs have. He has N'Keal Harry, who's awful, Jacoby Myers, who can get open and catch balls, but I mean, he scored one touchdown in his career. Kendrick Bourne, who, he flashes sometimes. Like, we're not talking about blue chip players on the edge for him. And at running back, yeah, it's great. Like, Ramondre Stevenson, awesome. Like, Damian Harris, awesome. But I don't think that offensive line is that truly like great. Like, they just don't push people around like the Eagles O-line does, or the Colts O-line does. And if you want to be run first, I mean, that's fine. But at some point in the playoffs, your quarterback has to make a throw, which is how they got on that win streak. But these defenses are better. Like, these are the best defenses, and you're going to have to do it against these guys. And in a shorter clock, because you want to run the ball a lot, they just kind of scream fraudulent to me. Gotten here on kind of inflated record, and I don't think they have the skill that these other teams have in the AFC.
Plus, I just think they don't play the way that's required to win certain playoff matchups. Like, if they get lucky and they play three teams in a row in the playoffs and then make it all the way to the Super Bowl, if they play teams that don't make them score, then they'll be fine. But like, if they have to keep up with somebody else, they're screwed. And Belichick is the best coach of all time, and this Patriots defense is pretty good, but it's not good enough to turn games that should be 28-24 into games that are 10-7.
Right. Switching over to the NFC side, the biggest fraud to you on the NFC side.
Oh man, this one's hard. I know who I want to say, but I can't.
Oh man. Oh no.
I might. This one, I'm gonna let you go first on this one.
You want me to go first?
Yeah,
wow.
I don't know if I can do it.
No.
I mean, I think it's Philly.
You think it's Philly?
Kind of. I did like. Look, if they came out and won a playoff game, I would be thrilled. But they haven't beaten anybody either in the last couple of months. They're on fire right now. Like, they're playing really well, but they're playing against bad teams over and over, and they even lost that Giants game just a couple weeks ago. Jalen Hurts' ankle a little banged up. But my biggest concern with the Eagles as far as the playoffs go is every time they've played an above-average quarterback this year, they posted like 75% completion percentage, absolutely killed it, kind of moving the chains, controlling the clock, and then Philly can't, get off the field on third down, and then, that's a recipe for disaster. Herbert did it to him. Derek Carr did it to him. The list goes on. Dak did it to him. So I think that if you're looking at the prospect of playing Matt Stafford or Tom Brady or even Dak again, I'm less confident in them to win a game than anybody else.
Man, Tyson. Whew. All right.
Listen, America, you know how much fan base.
Yeah, I mean, you know how much I heard him to say to America.
Yeah. Fuck the Cowboys.
Well, for me, it's the Cardinals. And I love the skill position players. I love certain players in that defense. It's just, man, I get it. We love Kyler Murray, and because he does like some crazy stuff. And it's like, ooh, he looks like a little gnat kind of running around. Nobody can catch him, and all of a sudden he bombs 160 yards. But I watch Kyler Murray and I'm not quite sold on him. There's just something about him I'm not sold on. It's like I think he's a bad leader. Me personally, like I know they might dispute it, but I'm just watching and it doesn't seem like they buy into him as much as you see. Like, obviously, like people buy into Rodgers. You see people bought into Dak, Matt Stafford. Great leader. It's just for Kyler. It always just seems like contentious. Like he's lecturing AJ Green. I'm like, dude, AJ Green's done more in this league than you have. like about because he didn't come back to the ball. It's like, why did you throw that ball? Like, come on. Like, I'm just watching things. I'm like, dude, you got to lead your team. And when it gets tough, I don't feel like he kind of doesn't. And I think when you get to the playoffs, that's a big thing. You got to believe. You got to have belief. You got to everybody on the same page. And so that just screams frauds to me. The Cardinals. I get, DeAndre Hopkins is going to come back and it's going to make them more explosive and with Adam Wesley, or I mean, all of a sudden he's a threat now, and I guess he's taking Christian Kirk stuff, which is pretty wild. So, it's all great in Arizona land when everything's clicking, but inevitably in the playoffs it doesn't, and you got to overcome. And I just don't buy them right now.
Well, they feel like the truest sense of the word, frauds. Like they start out 7-0, I think, this year, killing everybody, and they've been fine since. Like they've been average. They would have been right on the cusp of the 7th seed if this team, the one that showed up, the last 7 weeks of the regular season, they would be, fighting for 500. And I think that's closer to who they are. And also, it's just like we talk about it all the time. When's the last time the Arizona Cardinals, as currently constructed, showed me they could go out there and win the Super Bowl?
Right. I mean, everybody says, "Oh, Russell Wilson did it." It's like, yeah, but that defense is like super elite, like one of the best ever. This Cardinals team has good players, but they're not an elite defense. And again, we're back to the undersized quarterback thing with Wilson.
But Russell is a smart football player. Kyler does some stuff that is very confusing, like snapping the ball with 11 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever.
It's like
everyone else thinks you're going to spike it, and then you start running around. That's a dumb play. Throwing it to AJ Green on the game they lost to the Packers, I think. First of all, bad throw. Second of all, dumb play. That's 2 winning moments right there that I can point to against good teams this year that he lost. So that, to me, doesn't bode super well for the playoffs.
I agree. And it's going to get tighter. The window's going to get smaller. And you're going to need something there. And not to mention the Cardinals, they haven't played in this stage before. And you got Cliff Kingsbury. And I think he's done a good job this year. And the media loves to shit on him. And people are like, Cliff's an idiot. Well, it's going to be tough for him. Let's be honest. But that's a learning curve that you're going to have to do. That's why everything about this team, to me, as it's constructed this year, I'm not saying Kyler sucks. I'm not saying he can't get better. I'm not saying Cliff sucks. This team's like, oh, this is their ceiling. No, you got to trust that this team is going to continue to improve and build. For me, right here, in this year, 2021, 2022, I think they're the most fraudulent NFC team. That's all I'm saying. So don't take it further than that for anybody who's listening. I think it could get better there. Honestly, they draft well. They got a quarterback. Just got to build it up. Now, Tyson, let's move to a wild card round. That's what we're going to see after Week 18 to. In the AFC, the wild card team most likely to win. Now, whether that's the Super Bowl, whether you're going to just take it a wild card weekend, just kind of looking at that, or go to the AFC Championship game, make a run out of that wild card spot. Who do you think is going to be that team?
I think Indianapolis, to me, is kind of the no-brainer there in the AFC side of things, just because defense is good enough, right? Physical enough, force enough turnovers to kind of keep them in games with anybody. They've played really well against the elite teams of the NFL so far this season. And then they have Jonathan Taylor, who's doing, stuff that previously was reserved only for Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara types. And he's second year in, kicking the door down, saying, I'm one of those guys. I might be the best guy right now. Give me the ball. Offensive line, awesome. Carson Wentz, contrary to popular belief, is actually good enough to win playoff games just because he hasn't done it. He might, at this stage, the way he plays now, he might not be the reason you win a playoff game, but he's certainly good enough to not be the reason you didn't lose. And I think that's kind of what Indianapolis needed following Phillip Rivers and that debacle against the Bills last year. Carson doesn't turn the ball over and Jonathan Taylor keeps rolling, I think he's got 4 straight games with 100+ yards. They could be really scary.
I agree with that. The Colts, I love them, but I'm going to go Chargers here. Justin Herbert, elite level, elite weapons. Austin Eckler's really good. Keenan Allen, really good. Mike Williams, awesome. That's the offensive side of the ball. I think that's a really scary and hard for defensive coordinators to scheme against, especially with a talent like Herbert throwing the ball. And we've seen it this year when he just is on. Man, you can't stop that guy. Like you just can't stop him. And on the defensive side of the ball, they haven't quite been. Chargers sneakily for the past 5 years have been like a really good defense.
Yep.
They don't quite have that same feel to them this year, giving up a lot of yards and points. But I think when it's the time's right, there's going to be players who step up on the defensive side of the ball and get a good 3 and out, can get a stop, force get a big sack, force a turnover, and give the ball back to their offense enough times that elite side of the ball that they have on their team is going to make enough plays to be able to push them forward, win a game, and then, maybe you're in the AFC Championship game with 2 upsets that, oh, wow, Justin Herbert's there already? Wow, that's a big sign for the Chargers. So that's my answer there.
I like it. Now,
let's go to the NFC side of things. Same question. Who do you got in the NFC wildcard?
Well, I went on about the Niners, so I think that one's easy. But I have to redeem myself as a Philadelphia Eagle fan. I got to at least, I said they might be frauds, but they also have been rolling people, running for 250 yards a game, going to get Miles Sanders back. Jalen Hurts looks way better than he did, halfway through the year. He looks like he figured out how to win these close games. Defense has improved a lot. And the reason that I'm going to, go ahead with this take is that they can control the clock better than I think anybody else that they might have to play. Obviously, if they play the Bucs, Brady's going to do some Tom Brady things and maybe end up even that out. There's a 9-minute drive he has there. But consistently over the last 2 or 3 weeks, Philadelphia has just ran the ball the entire first drive for the most part, a couple crossing patterns and maybe a bubble screen here or there, and they have the ball for 7 minutes before they're even in field goal range. And if they can shorten the game, they can play with anybody, because if they don't have to try to play the style of defense that they play while covering Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham and Van Jefferson, they can play with anybody and they can beat anyone just off the strength of the run game.
I think you're right. I think you're right on the Eagles. I'm going to go with the Niners. Similar to, we just went through the Niners. I'm not going to repeat it. Yeah, we flopped. But here's my thing. Physical football, again, I'm going to just reiterate this, my final point on this. Physical football wins, and what the Niners do better than I think anybody in the playoffs on both sides of the ball. Eagles are the best running game, but the Niners, every position is physical. And after a while, that starts to wear on you. And the Niners can go into Green Bay, because we've seen it before, and just pound them. All of a sudden, they're winning the game. Go down to the Rams, just go down the list. This team could win the NFC by just out physicaling. I don't know if they have better players at every position. Certainly not at quarterback, but what they do have is a toughness and a physicality that I think is going to be hard for these other teams to raise to. And ultimately, that's one of the reasons why you can go deep in this league.
And just to kind of put a bow on this segment here, we talked a couple weeks ago. We had a question, and it was most likely the Super Bowl matchup or Super Bowl matchup you most want to see. Mine then was Packers-Chiefs. Mine now is Packers-Chiefs. Has yours changed?
Oh, man. I'm going to go Rams-Chiefs. I'm going to go Rams-Chiefs right now.
That would be fun. Oh, only if it's half as good as that Monday night game they played like 4 years ago or whatever.
Oh, my. Could you imagine if that was that game, if that was a Super Bowl?
That was the best game I think I've ever seen.
That game was unbelievable. And they got Matt Stafford there now, so we might get a few more picks out of that one too.
Right, more pick sixes for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So the defense are going to have some fun in that one too.
Right.
Well, Tyson, man, this is going to be fun. I can't wait for the next podcast, because we're going to have this set. We're going to really start being able to break into these games, start individual matchups. Oh man, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, baby. We love football. You know how we do it on this show. But before we get out of here, as promised, Tyson got sent the question, and we're going to answer. We're going to solve the NFL's problem on the onside kick, because people have been asking me too. When I'm hanging out with them, like, oh god, these onside kicks, like nobody recovers them. Like I feel like people used to get them all the time. Wow, Tyson got sent a very interesting question, and we'll figure this out.
Yeah, it was Carter Westfall sent in a question, and he wanted to know basically every onside kick. It feels like it's 99.9% that's going to be recovered by the receiving team. How do you spice that up for the end of games? How do you change it to make it even? It doesn't have to be 50-50. It just has to be maybe even 98-2 would be better than what we're at right now. And I understand that you've been mulling this one over for a minute.
Oh yeah. So here's what I got. So I got two things, two aspects. So nowadays, one of the big things is every on the starting line is 1 yard behind the kicker because it's supposed to prevent collisions. So what I want to do is on onside kicks, you have to tell the referee ahead of time that you're doing onside kicks. So yeah, that takes away some from surprise onside kicks. So that kind of sucks, but you can still do some squibs or whatever, and you start from the 1 and do it. It takes, I guess you can take away, but I'm saying in a designated spot, you tell the ref, hey, we're doing an onside kick here. It's for that one play. You can move your players back to the 5 yards back, get a running head start at this thing. And so they're like with momentum right as the ball's kicked. I think that will create more opportunities to get the ball at the 10-yard line faster. Now, here's the kicker. The offensive players can't touch the ball until it's past 10 yards either. So when they just run past the 10 and catch it like a little dribbler on the 5, that would be illegal. You re-kick the onside kick. So this ball for both teams has to go past the 10. Now, if it hits somebody past the 10, so you just blast it and it hits the players trying to recover, and then it comes back across the 10-yard line. Obviously, that's live, right? We know that for a fact. But the offensive players have to wait until it crosses the 10 yards before they can touch the ball, or else you re-kick it.
I love that one. I think that would be really fun. It would also be a lot safer than what I came up with, because I mean, if we want to make it more fair, then let's go back to overloading one side of the field with bodies, and putting 9 guys on one side as the kicking team, put the ball on the right hash and put 9 guys on the left and 1 guy on the right, and make the receiving team have to adjust. I think that would just be more fun for sure. But the issue of the onside kick is kind of, it's an underrated kind of talking point, because it's not empirical, but it feels like it's 99% of them. I don't know what the actual number is, but they're not really all that well designed, and they're like one of the only things that hasn't changed with the rest of the NFL.
It is annoying too. It's like, when you're the team receiving the onside kick, you're like, oh, this game's pretty much in the bag. But when you're kicking it, you're like, I just want it to be some chance, some sort of hope that we can get it. Like, come on. Like, I don't want to all the time be like, oh, another onside kick recovery. This team who was leading, they got screwed by this stupid onside kick. But it's like, oh my God, this team actually has a chance because they just scored a touchdown. They can get this onside kick and like actually feel like they can. Not like, oh God, well, they'll never get the onside kick.
It should just be 1 guy on the kicking team, 1 guy on the receiving team, and the kicker kicks it, and they just have to go after it.
That would be crazy. Or if you did like 3-on-3,
right? Yeah. First only play in the game where all penalties are allowed. It's like
it'd be like the longest yard,
right? Yeah, it'd be, you got to do something, and maybe a 3-on-3 thing would work.
That'd be awesome.
Imagine Julio Jones, Antonio or AJ Brown, and Derrick Henry on the receiving team for the Titans. And then the Rams have like Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and then
some receiver who they got, like Cooper Kupp, just
right. Or Whitworth, just send an offensive lineman out there.
Crushes.
The Niners with Juszczyk. They would win it. Juszczyk and Kittle would win every onside kick, I think. Possible.
Well, we'd have to rethink the 3-on-3 then, because they just roll the boys out there. We're like, oh shit! All right, well, the Niners are coming back.
Right. The Colts just send out Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, just
you can send out 3. They're like, we know.
He's gonna get it too. All right, Carter. Well, thank you for sending in the question. That's our idea about, because we agree with you. I mean, it's trivial, man. Like, who knows when the offense is going to get it? We had like that 1 week with like 4,
Right.
and then was that like the only 4 recovered in the entire season? Like, it's terrible now.
Or let Young Wei Koo kick all of them.
Right.
Doesn't
Yeah. So
he,
he's
like-
going to fly into
Right. Yeah.
helicopter across.
Be easy.
Well, that's Tyson. That's a wrap on our first podcast in 2022. And we got it. I'm excited for this year, man. We got big plans ahead for those people out there. Don't want to jinx ourselves on anything. So when anything comes, you'll obviously be the first to know as the listeners when you'll see some changes to anything going on and any reads that may happen. But as always, keep in touch with us. Follow me on Twitter at BWakai. Follow Tyson on Instagram at Tyson Gentry. And obviously follow the Roundtable on Instagram _ or at _ the Roundtable Pod _ So feel free to interact with us all the time. Tyson, you got anything else going on you want to promote?
Not really, man. It's just, it's playoff time in the NFL. And normally I'm just not, I gotta go shovel tomorrow. So that's like all I can
That's
think
all
about
you can think about
in my head. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I feel for you, man. Also, forgot to mention this on the close. We'll have more guests as well. So we're going to be working on that. So that should be some fun kind of change up to just me. So it's Tyson and myself. So it's going to be a big year. And we're excited for it. Appreciate you joining the journey with us, going on this little ride, and share, subscribe, as we said, share with your friends, and let's try to build this thing out. Send in questions. But as always, until next time, everybody, peace.